Mining is a common practice all around the world. It allows people to have access to resources that are hidden in the depths of the earth and is immensely profitable. However, it can have detrimental effects on the environment and the people living in the surrounding area. Daughter of the Lake, a documentary film directed by Ernesto Cabellos, follows Nelita, a woman native to the Cajamarca region of Peru, as she fights to stop the government from allowing the Newpont Mining Corporation access to water and land. However, this specific type of violence, also called slow violence, is difficult to represent, as explained in the scholarly essay Slow Violence and the Environmentalism of the Poor, written by Rob Nixon. We will use this essay to categorize the conflict within Daughter of the Lake and explain its qualities. In order to explain the representational challenge of slow violence and how to overcome it, we will use The Greater Common Good, an essay written by Indian author and political activist Arundhati Roy, wrote as an example of a text that overcomes such boundaries, and relate this to Daughter of the Lake. Through the use of direct cinema style and multiple storylines, Daughter of the Lake uses similar strategies to Roy and overcomes the representational challenge of slow violence, conveying the struggles faced by the inhabitants of the Cajamarca as they try to prevent mining from taking over their homes, and emphasizing to the audience how the representational challenge of slow violence can make it difficult to prevent corporations and the government from funding environmentally damaging activities.
Nixon's idea of slow violence can be defined as the environmental crises that are disregarded in comparison to the flashy, eye-catching events that commonly get the most attention. These threats almost always take advantage of the poor and their lack of voice and communication to the outside world, along with the slow effect on the environment to keep out of sight of the global media and populace. This is called the representational challenge of slow violence. Some third-party figure must intervene to give light to the situation at hand because the oppressed and exploited cannot do it themselves. An example of slow violence is the dam-induced displacement of the inhabitants of Narmada Valley, located in Gujarat, India, during the 1990s. Indian author and political activist Arundhati Roy gives an essay on the topic called The Greater Common Good, using her fame to bring more attention to the issue. In the environmental conflict, the government attempts to build a new dam, the Sardar Sarovar, which will in turn flood the homes of many natives and force them to move. The villagers who try to protest and speak up against the building of the dams have to gradually relocate to a new environment time and time again with the building of each new dam. Along with this, the villagers are not receiving their promised amenities at their forced location, causing them to live a life of greater suffering and therefore have less resources to communicate the problem to the outside world. The government turns parasitic rather than helpful and silences them. Because this content is not necessarily the most flashy and immediate threat, Roy has to adopt some strategies to ensure the case can be brought to global attention in an effective manner. One strategy she uses is displaying hard statistics to concisely and factually display the effect of dam building on the natives. For example, she states that around 50 million people have been displaced by development projects in India, and around 40 million of them have been displaced by dams specifically. The statistics cannot be muddled by subjectivity and are backed with evidence and sources to give credibility to the argument. She also exposes the government by employing the same tactics. She discusses how the government has made dams out to be something that is good for the country and has built about 3,300. Yet 200 million people, which is a fifth of the population of India, do not have clean drinking water.
Similarly to Roy's essay, Daughter of the Lake gives a voice to people whose voices have been suppressed by the government. One strategy that it uses to do so is by including scenes that are filmed in a direct cinema style. This makes viewers feel like a fly on the wall, as if they are simply observing events, giving the film a greater sense of credibility. An example of this is in a scene where Maxima Acuna, a subsistence farmer from Cajamarca, is being exploited due to her illiteracy. Newmont Mining Corporation is attempting to tell her that her land documents are false or expired so that they can mine on her land. She has to find someone who can read and is educated in law to ensure that she truly owns her land. Although she is not speaking directly to the camera, the viewers can see the pain in her eyes, giving the situation more realism and portraying the effects of the environmental conflict. This also shows the villainous acts of the mining corporation, as well as how they routinely attempt to stifle any resistance from the natives of the area, often making false claims. This type of systematic exploitation happens over a long period of time, until the private corporation has gotten its way. The documentary also uses multiple storylines to emphasize the central idea that mining can be damaging to the environment and livelihoods. In addition to showing the events happening in Cajamarca, the film also portrays events in Bolivia, where mining has already robbed the land of water, preventing farmers from being able to grow enough food. Early on in the documentary, viewers are shown how the land has dried up and that there is very little water flowing through the riverbed. The inhabitants talk about how the land wasn't always like this, and how mining caused the water to disappear. This parallels the situation in Cajamarca, but shows what Cajamarca may look like in the future if Newmont mining isn't prevented from mining in the area. Because of this, viewers can see how mining gradually changes the landscape of an area until it is almost unrecognizable, which is another instance of slow violence. Another example of this is when Bibi van der Velden, a Dutch jewelry maker, comes to survey the land where the gold for her jewelry comes from. She observes that a large quantity of land has been destroyed in order for her to obtain a small quantity of gold, which once again shows viewers that the payoff of mining is relatively low compared to the environmental impact. It also emphasizes how the land has been destroyed because of the greed of both the government and the mining company. In conclusion, Daughter of the Lake overcomes the representational challenges of slow violence with the use of personal stories and using multiple storylines in direct cinema. The oppression of the native is cast into the light, and the differing viewpoints from the sources we have read throughout the course of this class come together to aid the rights of those in need.